Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the terrifying Vaughn Manor, where Roger and I have returned. Because it's Wednesday, that means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue on his channel will talk about the same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team up that we do once a week. And boy, Steve is sure going to be happy with me this week because we really picked a winner here, didn't we, Roger? So, Horror Mayhem, a reading event celebrated here on BookTube, is just, well, I think it's tomorrow. I think it starts tomorrow, Roger. A reading event dedicated to short horror fiction. And so I decided to help usher in Horror Mayhem. We would do a comic book story that was terrifying. And so I got my pal Roger, master of horror over here, to choose a great comic book classic of terror. And he did. Now, I recommend the more sensitive viewers among you just leave now before you're too terrified. You don't want to stay up at night, with horrifying nightmares from this comic book story. But the braver among us, we will continue on with this classic of horror. Now, we could find this terrifying tale in this horrifying book. This is The Giant Turtle Man. It's the Giant Turtle Man. I know what you're saying. You're saying, why the hell aren't we doing an episode today on The Giant Turtle Man? That's a fair question. Don't worry. Rocket Summer is just a couple months away, and The Giant Turtle Man is sort of a science fiction tale of terror, and so we'll get to that later. But today's horrifying story delves into the supernatural and one of the most horrifying creatures that you could find in a supernatural story, the werewolf. Yes, it's a ghastly tale of a werewolf and the horrifying things this werewolf does. Man, it's going to be a bloodbath. So we could find this story. It originally was published in Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, number 52. There he is, the horrifying werewolf, stalking his victims. Even Superman's frightened. He's up there on that rock. He's afraid to mess with this werewolf. It's too terrifying. So, this classic story originally appeared here in Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, in, I think, 1960 or 61. It was one of those years. And there are other horrifying stories here, like this is The Spectre of the Haunted House, but we're not going to talk about those stories. We're going to go straight to the most terrifying Jimmy Olsen story of all, if I can find it now. Here we go. Okay, Jimmy Olsen, Wolfman. So you might not have known this about Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, but Jimmy Olsen frequently was transformed into terrifying beings. It was just something that happened to him, the poor guy. And he had previously been a werewolf. He had been a werewolf before. It was one of his dark secrets. But he was cured from his werewolfism by the kiss of a beautiful woman. I know, I don't buy it either, but that's what happened. And so, as we begin our terrifying tale, Jimmy Olsen has been cured of his werewolfism and living well, I wouldn't say it's a normal life, but he's living a life, And unfortunately, to make this story even more ghastly and horrible, we have a visitor from another dimension, a terrifying, horrifying creature. There he is, Mr. Mxyzptlk. It's Mr. Mxyzptlk over there in the corner, looking on as this terrifying werewolf attacks this woman. You see, it's vicious. And so he's just, just lurking there, being a creep, basically. Now he's in this form because his regular form is just too terrifying to be seen by human eyes without human human beings going immediately insane. So as we begin our story, Jimmy Olsen is still a normal man, dating his beloved Lucy. Let's go, Lucy. I'm famished. So they're going to go out to a restaurant to eat, as normal folk do. Unfortunately, floating above them is this ghastly horror who has fallen in love with Lucy. I know, it's twisted. And so he's fallen in love with Lucy. And so he needs to get Jimmy Olsen out of the way. And one way to do that is to make him become a terrifying werewolf once again. As you can see here, he's in love as our hero here is having a good time, living his best life. He says goodbye to Lucy. They go their own ways. And that's when Mr. Mxyzptlk tries to make his move, but he is rejected. She just slams the door at his face. She knows exactly who he is, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Not you again, Mr. Mxyzptlk. So, Mr. Mxyzptlk has been rejected by Lucy. His black, evil heart is broken. He desires vengeance, which he's going to get against Jimmy Olsen, our innocent ex-werewolf, Jimmy Olsen. Now, at the time, Jimmy Olsen is hanging out in his apartment, looking at his shelf of creepy things. Jimmy Olsen has a shelf of creepy old junk, which he likes to look at. Souvenirs from his past horrifying adventures. And one of these souvenirs, which he keeps for some reason, is this bottle. The Wolfman potion is in this bottle. The Wolfman potion, beware. He who drinks this brew gains a wolf's form under moonlight. Ye antidote, the willing kiss of a beautiful maiden will break the spell. Now, somehow, against his will, he feels himself compelled to drink the werewolf potion. He's forced to do this by our terrifying interdimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk. And to make matters even worse, Mr. Mxyzptlk has, unbeknownst to Jimmy Olsen, transformed the werewolf potion into normal water. Well, that's not so bad. But using his own terrifying powers, Mr. Mxyzptlk curses Jimmy with the curse of the werewolf. Now, the rules of the potion no longer apply. It doesn't matter how many beautiful women kiss Jimmy Olsen when he's a werewolf. He'll never be cured. He's doomed to walk the earth a werewolf forever. That's pretty awful. So all of this is unknown to Jimmy, but he gets a visit from his pal Superman, because he calls him with his super wristwatch here, his signal watch. What's the problem, Jimmy? I gave way to a crazy impulse and drank some of that Wolfman potion again. When the moon comes out, I'll become a wolfman, and only a beautiful girl's kiss can break the spell and make me become normal. This Superman doesn't even seem surprised by this. He's like, what? You went and drank the Wolfman potion for no reason? Here we go again. Superman's used to Jimmy Olsen doing crazy stuff. I guess we all have friends like that. Anyway, now we get a recap of our past adventure. But no beautiful girl will want to kiss an ugly monster, so I thought perhaps, and then Superman says, I'll arrange for Miss X, who kissed you in a darkened room and broke the spell for you last time you were a werewolf, to do it again. He's gonna get Miss X. It's getting kind of risque, this story now. You know, it's dark. It's some dark stuff here. Jimmy Olsen becoming a werewolf. So Superman goes to find Miss X. He's like, I'll find her, but I got other things to do at the moment. But in the meantime, the transformation occurs and Jimmy Olsen has become a werewolf. Look at how terrifying he is. So I'm sure he's going to go out and kill a bunch of folks, but we didn't get to that part yet. Before Jimmy Olsen could give in to his werewolf impulses and commit terrible murders, here comes Superman with the mysterious Miss X. Miss X, as it turns out, is Supergirl. We didn't know about her other identity as Miss X when she goes in for those, hanky-panky shenanigans. But anyway, in a darkened room, Miss X encounters the Wolfman. Crazy stuff's going on. And now, Miss X kisses Jimmy Olsen. So Jimmy, poor bastard, thinks he's going to be transformed right away into the handsome Jimmy Olsen. But no, he's still cursed with the curse of the werewolf. It didn't work. Miss X sucks. He's just a normal werewolf guy. He can't do anything about it. Look at him. He's looking in the mirror. He's all upset. Auk, he says. He's so upset he says, Auk. Auk, the reflection. I'm still a wolfman. I observed that in the dark with my radar vision, Jimmy. Superman has radar vision now. He doesn't just have X-ray vision. He actually also has radar vision. He has all kinds of superpowers, Superman does. This time, for some inexplicable reason, a beautiful girl's kisses failed to remove the spell. Well, that's tough luck for you, Jimmy, says Superman. I've got to go now, Jimmy, to handle some urgent emergencies. Yeah, I've got to go. Meanwhile, I'll try to figure out some way to help you out. I'll keep you in mind. And Jimmy's like, sure, okay. Meanwhile, the evil, terrifying Mr. Mxyzptlk is having a great old time. He's laughing hysterically because his evil plan is working out great. So Jimmy Olsen the next day, after the moonlight has gone away, is transformed into his normal self, but only temporarily. He knows soon he will be transformed into a horrible werewolf once again. And then I'm sure the horror is going to come around right about now. We've gotten pretty far into the story without any kind of bloodshed or anything else like that. But I'm sure the horror is coming right about now. Anyway, he runs into Lois Lane. Lois Lane, who is going on an assignment with Jimmy Olsen, and runs into a mobster who is pretending to be a statue. That'll happen once in a while. You just go to a wax museum. There's a wax figure of a mobster. It turns out to be the real mobster who's pretending to be a wax figure. It'll happen once in a while. Anyway, Superman shows up, but Jimmy Olsen had spotted the mobster because, he's a smart guy. And Lois Lane says, I appreciate the help you gave me today, Jimmy. If there was some way I could repay you. And Jimmy Olsen says, well, there is. The moon is rising, and he becomes a werewolf. Lois Lane's pretty brave. She doesn't immediately scream and run away. Gasp! You've become a wolfman, just like that other time Superman told me about. Let me kiss you and free you from that spell. No, I realize that it's too much to ask that you'd kiss a horrifying creature like me. With all my heart, I hope this kiss will cure poor Jimmy. Bless Lois. I'll never forget this great kindness, says Kissy Werewolf, who kisses all the girls. Surely this will No, it won't. We know the secret, but Jimmy doesn't. We know that because of Mr. Mxyzptlk, he's just kissing all these girls and nothing will happen. He's going to stay a terrifying werewolf. Well, surely by now his rage has increased to the point where his werewolf urges will take control and he'll start murdering folks. Oh no! Here's a day where he's out with Lucy. Sure is bad news for Lucy. He's probably going to slaughter her right out here in the zoo. But no, he turns into a werewolf again. He's changing. There he is. He's a werewolf. And Lucy says, Jimmy, Lois told me everything. I know I refused to kiss your wolf face last time this happened to you. She did? What a bitch. Anyway, I know I refused to kiss your wolf face last time this happened to you, but please let me kiss you now. She's got over her anti-werewolf feelings. I want to help you. I've closed my eyes. I'll think of somebody real handsome. Perhaps if I wish hard enough. Man, she's so shallow, Lucy. Jeez. This is the most important kiss I ever got from Lucy. Unfortunately, gasp, you're as repulsive as ever, says Lucy. Forget me, Lucy. You're a wonderful girl. She is? Really? And I'm something terrible. Yeah, he's something terrible because he's hairy. Man. He's terrible. Sure would be nice if he did some terrible werewolf things, but he seems to not know how to be a werewolf, Jimmy Olsen, frankly. At this point in the story, I'm starting to wonder about your taste in stories, Roger. I mean, he hasn't done anything horrible this whole issue. All he's doing is kissing girls. Didn't teenage guys in the 1950s think of anything else other than kissing girls? Well, this is the 1960s. So anyway, he's tragically upset, which leads to the next scene where he jumps off a cliff. At least that's what it looks like when you first turn the page. You turn the page and suddenly he's falling into the ocean. But then you get up to the caption there and it says, later, as Jimmy sadly watches the moon's reflection on the sea, I slipped on a pebble. Maybe I'll be lucky and crack my skull on some rocks. So Jimmy Olsen slipped on a pebble. Who slips on a pebble? Jimmy Olsen, that's who. He slipped on a pebble, fell into the ocean, and he runs into, wouldn't you know it, Lori Lamaris, the mermaid, who promptly kisses him because she could tell through her psychic abilities that he needs to be kissed. Doesn't work. Even a mermaid kissing our horrifying werewolf doesn't help. Eventually, he goes to Metropolis and runs into Lana Lang. And Lana kisses him. And he's getting kissed again. There's a lot of kissing going on in this comic book. Roger, there's a lot of kissing in this. Anyway, the kiss from Lana doesn't work. Man, it's looking grim for our hero. But when all is darkest, this mysterious woman runs up to Jimmy Olsen in his horrifying werewolf form. By now, he's surely contemplating some murder, right? I mean, he's got to be thinking at this point, I'm just going to kill everyone. It's the last page of this story is just going to be red because there's going to be blood everywhere. It's going to be a horrifying slaughter. No, it's not. The last page is this mysterious woman jumping on Jimmy and kissing him. And suddenly, Jimmy inexplicably is feeling normal. But when he looks at this woman, yipes, she's a homely hag. What? Homely hag? She just saved you, Jimmy. Jimmy Olsen, what a dick. But he's just been a werewolf. I guess you can forgive him. But he's been changed back to his normal Jimmy self by this woman who isn't as attractive as he would like her to be. And our horrifying interdimensional demon says, it's Mxyzptlk. I can't pronounce her name. I'm not from the fifth dimension. My girlfriend from the fifth dimension. I magically changed the original wolf potion into water. A kiss couldn't have saved Olsen. Two-timer, she screams, when you stood me up on my birthday. On her birthday? Jeez. I followed you to this world and secretly saw the mischief you did to Jimmy Olsen. You wanted to steal his girl. But this magic brand of lipstick saved him. Read it and weep. And he's transported back to his fifth dimension to take his normal horrifying form, which, like I said, if you saw it, you would instantly go insane. I assume it's the same way with her, but she's transformed back into her normal self in the fifth dimension, and Jimmy is left recovered. And the end of the story, Jimmy is with Shallow Lucy once again. Aw, just one kiss, says Jimmy. You got enough kisses in the last few days to last you months, you wolf. And that's the end of the story. I hope you weren't too frightened by that. So that ushers in horror mayhem. That was pretty rough, Roger. I'm not sure I could recover from that one. Scary stuff. So thank you for joining me once again here on Epic Comic Book Wednesday at Stately Vaughn Manor. The next time I come back, perhaps I'll have something to show you even more terrifying than that. It's unlikely, but it's possible. Okay, my friends, I will catch you next time.